Greetings, brothers and sisters. Today, we wish to discuss intention. It is timely to understand the difference between thinking intention and intention. Those two differences can create a world of changes. Some you like, some you don't. What you intend to do and how that physically manifests within your world. To set a foundation for this explanation, we wish to begin by explaining how we, the Spirit, use our Son's body to communicate to you. It is an important process. We use words. It is the purpose of channeling through his body. The purpose being that we can communicate in a way that you can understand, that you can interpret, that you can take the time to delve into the words and get to the energetic intention of what we were attempting to communicate. Now, if we were to communicate as we normally would with our Son, we do not do this with words. There are no words. He receives our energy of intention from a place of being, and it is within that place of being that the words are interpreted into meanings. Now, this is something that each of you have experienced. In that sense, this is nothing new. However, if attention is not brought forth to when it occurs, then you would not recognize it. For each of you, think of a moment where you had an inspirational flash. And within that flash was an understanding. You just knew it. You understood. And once you understood, the thoughts and emotions you had around that particular subject changed instantly. And this is not very complicated. It could be a certain concept, like trying to understand an electronic. How does it work? How does it turn on? How do I get to the menu? What are the options? And you sit trying to figure out how to start it. And suddenly, you get a flash, and you understand, and the process unfolds before you. And the rest becomes intuitive as far as how you get through the device. Now, what you were looking at in perception before you had the flash of understanding and could proceed was completely different than once you received the flash and you knew and you understood and then proceeded. Where did that flash come from? And did it have words? This is important. Was someone sitting there saying, this is the button to turn it on. Once it turns on, this is the button for the menu. No, it was all an internal dialogue within yourself of no words. And then you gained the experience of taking the physical actions to follow your intuition to understand. And this example can come in many ways within your life. There are many things that this occurs in order to further understanding. So it is nothing new. However, in the example we are giving between us and our son, he has learned to be in that energetic space to receive our energy and then transform it into words. And the way that Spirit uses the words is not the way that you intend them. This is something we have gone through over several lessons. That what you understand the word to be and the intention behind it is not the way that Spirit is using it. And so there's a learning in the beginning of working with Spirit of understanding the word and the intention we are using behind it in order to unlock the meaning of Spirit's lessons. And the first set of lessons, if you watched them, working with Mansour was entirely teaching him a language. And the lessons, taking from the person receiving it, from their perspective, which being is Mansour, was very frustrating. A large part of our communication was, we said the sentence, and then he interpreted it the way he understands the words to be. Some of them was an instant correction by explaining the meaning of what we were intending. Others took over a year. Why? Why would it take over a year if we sit before him and explain what we intended? Because what we explained went against his understanding or intention of the word. So it's not so easy, because he believes the intention or the energy behind the word means a certain thing, is a certain perception, is a certain state of being. So simply saying it to him did not produce the result required to be able to have a simple understanding. First, he had to become aware of his intention of the word. Hear what we just said. First, he had to become aware of his intention with the word, not ours. Before he could become aware of ours and consider it, he first had to become conscious of his own. That took time. There are things we told him in the first meeting we are still waiting for him to come to terms with and accept his intention with the word, with the sentence, with the explanation, with the paragraph we gave, within the communication we sent. And still, we wait. Because before he can understand our intention, he must become conscious of his own. Well, why does not Spirit just simply point it out? It is a matter of free will. If he is unwilling, we won't. We will not break free will. And yet, there are parts of the conversation he considered to be open-minded. And we did explain it. In fact, we explained it now several times over. And still we wait. Wait for what? For him to become aware of our meaning, our intention, and the words we used? No. We wait for him to accept his own. Because before he can understand ours, he has to understand his own. You cannot exchange an idea if you don't know what yours is? You don't know what you're exchanging. You don't know why you're exchanging it. You don't know if you should. You just know that's the way things work, and it's best left alone. Best not looked into. Best to let it run its own course. It's always worked before, has it not? So why should I change it now? And so we wait. And that is free will. That is choice. And it goes much deeper than the understanding of logic. Because he would sit before us and say, if it is not serving me, then it's not logical to hold on to. Are you sure about that? Are you quite sure about that? And we say this to bring to your attention that your world is a reflection of that fact. It is not logical. Why would I hold on to it? Well, take a look at life around you. Is it logical? Does it make sense? Then why are you holding on to it? And the answer is, you are not ready to see your intention behind the energy, which you mask with words. With words. But we'll go deeper with that later. So to set the foundation of understanding intention and the timeliness of gaining a clearer understanding of that word and what that means is set with the foundation of understanding our communication with our son. He experiences the energy and it transforms into words. And there are different states of consciousness that he does this within. He can do this with his husband while he's doing the dishes, while they're going for a walk, while they're shopping at Walmart, looking for a new suit. And he just channels the energy through, brings in the words, and goes about his business. He is fully conscious and fully within his body when he does it. Or it can go much deeper as now within a channel state. And he can go anywhere from semi-conscious to not being conscious at all and not even being aware of the room. That one, that state of channeling, he is still working to trust and let go and to relax into a deeper state. To be able to allow it to flow freely and not be conscious of it at all and just let it be. To receive the energy from the state of energy as energy. But he has his reasons why this would be a sore spot. He was psychically attacked once during channel state, which took months worth of recovery. So there is a trust issue, one he is learning to work out. So, intention. Why the example of Spirit using words through our son? Because it leads to the question we lay before you. What is intention? There is what you think it means, and then there is what we are trying to explain to you, our version of understanding of it. And this is where we say, take for a moment and consider. If this is a true channel state. If we are what we say we are, and if you have experience with us watching our previous videos and working the exercises we gave, taking time to reflect on the lessons that was explained, then there would be some faith, some inner knowing that occurred that we are what we are. We are spirit channeling through the body. So, many of us from this group have had physical life. Some have never had a physical life. It was not an experience they wished to attain. And so they've never had a physical body. But many of us in the group have. And so we sit before you coming through this physical body and offer a perspective of a being, an entity, part of the light of God that has been exactly where you are, have experienced exactly what you're experiencing, and more, and have evolved beyond it, have learned that it is no longer an experience that is necessary, that we have gleaned everything we possibly could from the experience in understanding ourselves and moved beyond it. So perhaps it would behoove you to take a moment and consider our perspective. Important distinction. We did not say believe. We did not say have faith in. We said consider. To be open-minded, that what we say is not your casual conversation you're going to get at a coffee shop. That perhaps there is a wisdom to be gained, a truth to be found, an insight into your own mind. Because we come from the perspective of having the physical and moving beyond it. And if we are not mistaken, isn't that what many of you say you're after? So you have a being that has done this before you. Is it wise to take the conversation as casually as you would hearing someone speak at a coffee shop? Now, if you listened to our previous lessons, why would we suddenly take this tone? Why are we emphasizing these words now? We haven't before. Why now? Because of the word intention and because of the situations and events transpiring now. There is no more time. The changes are upon you. And in this, we point to the previous lessons. We had spoken of how like attracts like, and energy builds in mass. And that spirit, not just this group, but many groups of spirits that have evolved beyond, have been working through humanity to give the message of a mass of fear, because like attracts like. And so the fear that you've been manifesting as your reality within your perception, within your way of being, pulls to each other and creates a mass energy. And this mass energy, when reaching critical mass, must turn into physical experience. How does a physical experience occur? Through you. Through you. Life is a stage, and you channel it through, and you act it out. And this is your history repeating itself. And there comes a point in time that after enough of the experience, whether it be war, famine, destruction, all of those things and more, after it reaches a critical mass of expression on your planet, it then trickles out. The inspiration for it disappears. And it's like all of a sudden, everyone wakes up. What was that? And then comes the exclamations, we'll never do war again. We'll never hurt each other like that again. We'll never set diseases upon each other like that again. We'll never use chemical warfare on each other like that again. How could we? What were we thinking? Indeed, what were you thinking? Were you thinking, or were you channeling through? And if you were channeling through something, what was that? Have you ever had the situation of walking into an angry environment and not realizing that you have done so? And then watch your personality shift. Old ways of behavior coming to the forefront, an edge within your words and your emotions and your intentions. And then you catch it. And many times, this could be as simple as going home for Thanksgiving. Why many of you wish to avoid it? Because it is a place of old set behaviors, things that do not change. Oh, certainly, there's a new picture on the wall. The carpets have been redone. The kitchen has been redesigned. But the emotional issues are set. And you go back into the energy to try to fend it off so you can spend time enjoying with each other as a family. And this is certainly not everyone, but many of you. Many of you. And when you walk into such an environment, the old behaviors rise up. The old ways of being is on the tip of your tongue. You struggle not to be angry, not to get upset, not to feel ashamed, not to feel guilt, not to lose confidence in yourself. It becomes a struggle. That type of energy mass pulls that out of you. It begins channeling through, which waters the seeds of discontent, and those behaviors rise. So, with that example, we go back to what is happening on your planet right now. It is of no coincidence we said a mass of fear. And what happens when there's a mass of fear? When fear becomes prominent? Well, we've already used this in a previous lesson. First, who is there to blame? The fear must be projected outward. One can't accept the fear for themselves. If you could, then you would be aware of the mass as it is. you would be aware of your responsibility to it. Certainly not for all of it, but what you've added. Your part of the like attracts like. And so, because that is not accepted, it is projected. So who do we blame for this? Well, some people blame a certain class of citizens. Other people blame the people that are blaming those class of citizens. But either way, there's blame all the way around of who is responsible. Who do we hate? Who is worthy to project this fear outward as the reason for it? And then, after who is to blame, how should they be held accountable? Well, let's change some laws. Let's change some laws' meanings. Let's strike down some laws. Let's pretend like they never existed, that we don't know why they were put on the books in the first place, why someone fought so hard to get it made into law. What atrocities did that law attempt to make sure can never happen again? Bah, we'll just ignore it. Or strike it down and not remember the wisdom that came from putting it in place in the first place. And it's an interesting perspective. A law that is there to treat everyone as equal. And then stand there and say, it shouldn't have been put up in the first place. What are you saying about your brothers and sisters? Well, that's it. That's it right there, isn't it? It does not equate into your brothers and sisters. They are not your brothers and sisters. And why is that? Well, because of their beliefs, because of their skin color, because of an imaginary line that separates my land from your land, automatically means they are not my brother or sister. That God did not create us equally. And that we are all one within the same energy. You can't possibly believe that if you're acting out those beliefs. But again, we can say these words and everyone says, no, I know that to be true. You say it in church. You say it when questioned. But then how do you explain your physical actions? Because your physical actions is the manifestation of fear. What are you channeling through? Who are you a servant to? You could approach it by remembering who you are and what God created, and standing within your light and saying no, which would negate the mass of fear. Let us repeat that. Which would negate the mass of fear, because that which was condensed would expand back out to its true state. Darkness is nothing more than the light condensed. How do you heal fear? You see it in its true light. And it expands back out into love. There is not fear or love. They are one and the same. Two sides of the same coin. The yin and the yang. That which is expanded, condensed. Healing is nothing more than perceiving truly the perceptions that collapsed it in the first place and expanding it back out by being with it in the moment, unafraid, and knowing the truth. So you could heal it, or you could believe it and join it and channel it through. Eventually, it will subside because you'll make it a physical experience, which is the point of all energy, to move towards physical experience within this dimension. But the cost, is it necessary? Must you do this again? Why? Was it enjoyable the last time? What makes you think it'll be enjoyable this time? If you didn't learn anything from the last time, what makes you think that there's going to be some major lesson that's going to evolve humanity's consciousness from it this time? Unless you can stand there and expand it in a moment and heal it, how could you learn? What would you learn? You just submit to the fear and let it run havoc over your planet. And even in that, you don't take responsibility. You blame God. Why didn't God do something? Why didn't God fix it? Brothers and sisters, you are God in motion. You are God deciding right now. God gave you free will, which means you are free will. And what are you freely doing with that will is the question. God cannot question itself. The questioner is you, because you have free will. And the only will you can question is your own. You can't even question each other's will. You think you can, but in truth, you can only question your own. And so we go back to the example. How should they be held accountable? And then it comes down to, how shall they be punished? How should we make them suffer? And then comes the eradication. By removing the physical body. And there is lots of ways. You have become incredibly creative in doing this. And so, we come back to the word intention. Why would that word be important within the example we just set? What is intention? And now, we will take this example that we just gave and expand it out into intention. Let us take the current circumstances that is happening right now within your country. And in this, many will not like to hear what we have to say. But again, we bring up the perspective of what we are, what we have experienced, and what we have moved beyond. And the first reaction, talking about these things on a serious note, is to push it away, avoid it, because it sounds like Spirit is judging us. There's guilt, there's shame, there's condemnation. Let us stop for a moment, brothers and sisters, and hear our heart when we say this. Despite what you would call the horrors we are describing, that you can clearly see within this conversation we are building to, you are doing nothing wrong. Let us repeat that. You are doing nothing wrong. It would appear that we are putting those judgments on you from our lofty place that we sit of why are you not more spiritual? But we will tell you, you are doing nothing wrong. Why would we say that? That makes no sense. Of course it's wrong. To kill another is wrong. To hurt another is wrong. To make them suffer is wrong. To blame them is wrong. Actually, it's not. It's an experience, and that is all. This physical form, that is the body and the vehicle of our Son, is not who he is. And so if something was to happen to take away this vehicle right now at this very moment, we understand he would not be harmed. He would lose this physical expression in this moment. That is it. But the truth of what we were created as was not touched, was not harmed. And the shame and the guilt and the pain and the suffering that you go through in this life fades. It fades. It's not who you are. It's what you leave behind. Now, there is the emotional body that we will speak of that pulls you back into physical experience every time. Because like attracts like. It's the karma you are attempting to work out, to forgive yourself, to stop judging yourself, to let go of trying to fix yourself, and to accept the gift that God already gave, that you don't have to do anything for, not to be worthy of, not have to earn it, not have to have it given to you. It was already given. It's as simple as accepting it. But in order to accept it, you have to stop listening to the voices of why you are not worthy, why you are guilty, why you are shameful. And this goes back to the story of the Garden of Eden, the tree of knowledge. The moment you stopped being and started judging, because you knew better. This was good, that is bad. The naked body is dirty. I must clothe it. That's too fat. That's too skinny. That's just right. But what a horrible heart and personality. You have the right job. You don't. You have the right job, but you're not really living. You have the right job, but your family takes all your money. You don't get to enjoy life. You're enjoying life too much. You're not saving. You're in danger. Judgments, judgments, judgments. Oh, look at where you live. Oh, you live in a nice place. Oh, but your neighbors are horrible. Judging, judging, judging. If only you'd do this, then you'd be okay. If only I buy this, then I'd be okay. If only I do this, then I'll be okay. Did you see the new book that just came out? If we learn about this dimension, then we'll be okay. And then there's the moment. And within that moment, that space of being, resides what God already gave. That requires none of that. Not a bit of it. And this is not a new message, is it? How many others have come to give this message? How many others have said this? But yet you can't hear it. Intellectually, you can grasp it. But then you live your life. In the moment, you understood it. You had a mental concept of why that is the truth. And then you live your life. And that moment of concept is not the way your life turns out. How do you calculate the difference? As soon as you walk into the gas station to grab a quick buy item, look at what she's wearing. Oh my God, I better protect my purse or wallet. Ooh, how dirty. Look at that poor sap behind the counter. Judgment, judgment, judgment. And this translates to intention, intention, intention. It is all about intention. The energy behind the words. Now, here is the difference between us. We set the example of intention and the way the mechanics work for you, having the realization and knowing, having the realization and understanding, and then you do. Our sun channeling and receiving the energy and transforming it into words seamlessly. Well, sometimes almost seamlessly. There are points because it is the physical. Error can and will creep in. Certain expressions is not exactly the way they should be or were intended. Just like life. There's no such thing as perfection. There is what is. So, we go through and now bridge that gap and show that we are the same. We use energy into words the same way. You have a concept, you know it, you form the words, and then you speak it. And much of that is built on the intellect of what you've been taught those words mean. And you ignore as much as possible that other people have different meanings for the same words. Linguists are the ones who appreciate the complexity and the illusionary nature of words, that they're poor expressions for intentions and energy to be expressed, that they create errors, that they don't meet in harmony between people. Linguists understand this and appreciate it and study that. How words have evolved and how words have changed in meaning. But the common everyday person works really hard to think that whatever their list of vocabulary is the way the word is intended. And if someone else has a different meaning, then they are wrong. Not there's something to learn, there's a new intention to understand. No, you're wrong. You have the wrong meaning. You have the wrong intention. And sometimes, even when a person flips through the Webster Dictionary and reads the meaning to show that they were correct, well, that's not what that means where I come from. So you're right and they're wrong. Words are the cheap wrapping paper for the true gift, the gift of intention, the gift of the energy that was sponsoring the words. Spirit will use the energy of intention, of expansion, of like, of love, and use the words in that way to express that energy, that we are one. Now, we set the foundation that we're using the same tools, spirit, and you who believes that they're human, that's not. You are spirit and body, but if you can't accept that belief, human will work for now, but yet we're using the same tool. And yet it seems to work the same way. So why do we create differently with it? What is the difference? How can we use that understanding to explain what is happening on your planet right now? The intensity and the rise in energy of chaos. And this is nothing new. We said this in our meetings years ago, that this would occur, that the pots would begin to boil over, and that the craziness would be happening faster and faster and faster, to the point that you can't even keep track of it anymore. It's just like a pot boiling over onto the stove. It's just a mess. We said this would occur. We said you were out of time then. And here we are. So what are we doing differently? Here is how spirit, believing themselves to only be human, uses that tool. There is what they intend, which is often based on fear. Often based on fear. But then they used a pretty wrapping paper to make the intention look good, to make it look pretty. Shall we give an example? Watch how complex it is within your society. An intention was made to round up the immigrants. And so the policy was put into play. Now, where would you go to find some? Randomly walking through the street? That's not very efficient. Do they have immigration meetings like at a bar? That doesn't happen. So where would you find them en masse to make it easy to collect them? These immigrants who are your brothers and sisters. Well, you would find them working. That's where they'd be en masse. Well, where are they being used en masse as labor? Let's show up there. And so you have, and you've collected them. In mass, it's like going fishing. You go where they populate. You go where they gather. And so you show up at job sites and you collect them. You do a surprise visit and you collect them. So now you have them, your brothers and sisters, who you are treating as less than you. Why? Because of an imaginary line, because of a different color of skin, because of a different language. Oh, no, 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 no. We have words, pretty wrapping paper to make it explainable. Because other people were hurt by them. They're dangerous. So we must protect ourselves by gathering them and ejecting them. So all of those people are going around working a full-time job. And when they get off the full-time job, then they go to town and wreak havoc, destroy homes, kill, plunder, burn, all of them? It doesn't matter. That logic is not necessary. It's not necessary because the pretty wrapping paper allows us to not look at them as our brother and sister because they are different than us. And here are the reasons why. But what if we put God in the same room and gave it a face and looked at you and said, but those are my creations. What would you say? How could you treat me this way? I am them and you are them because all of you are me. Why would you do this with the gift that was given? What would you say? Does the pretty wrapping paper you're using hold up? Interesting. Is it not? And so, they are collected, and then they are deported. But wait, where they're being deported to does not take them, so they come back. Now we get into the complexity of intention, but the intention was put forth to collect these people, so we can't stop collecting them because we've already created a machine to do it. So it has to continue doing it. One, it has to meet the expectations of those who are expecting it. And two, you have all these people being paid to do this, and they can't sit around now just waiting. So they have to continue doing the job. It's been set in motion. There are expectations because an intention was set. So now you have all of these people that are not actually going anywhere and being stored. So instead of working, because keep in mind, they're continuing to gather them from places of labor. And instead of doing labor within your country, they're now resting in a place. And they're not working, and you're feeding them. You're taking care of their medical bills. And they're just sitting, doing nothing. But wait, there's more being collected. But we can't get rid of them, so we have to store them. And instead of doing labor, they continue doing nothing, and the price skyrockets. But we don't talk about that because, again, intention. The intention of collecting and getting rid of. So we can't actually deal with the problem because the intention has already been set in motion. And so more pretty wrapping paper with the words come into play to make that acceptable. Do you know what you have the beginnings of? You have the beginnings of your first concentration camps. And this is where you say, no, 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 let me get some pretty wrapping paper. You can't compare that to other concentration camps because the basis of a concentration camp is that it's concentrated with a certain set of people. And the more you collect, the more it escalates, because the basis of the collection was that they are less than you. They are not of God and do not have to be treated as such. Which again, pretty wrapping paper to cover those intentions, to make it acceptable, to make it palatable, to make it breathable. I can get through the day. I don't like it, but at least it can make sense. And so the point of a concentration camp is a concentration of people who do not fit your decreed understanding of worthiness of God. By intentionally telling a part of God that they are no longer part of God and not included. Or are we mistaken? Now, you have a concentration, a collection of a certain type of people, based on color, based on belief. But this is nothing new. You've already had concentration camps here. Your prisons are filled to the brim with a certain set type people of a certain set type color that has already been announced. The sentencing to get them there is not the same sentencing any other certain type of people or of a certain type of color experiences. Their living situation is very different than the rest of your populace. So it's not the same, it's not equal. And so it's a concentration of a particular sect. Well, that's a concentration camp. It qualifies. But now you're doing new ones, more advanced. And this happened before previously. Children went missing. The living conditions within was horrible. People got sick. There was no medical aid given. Food was a scarcity. And we go back to the statement we made earlier. You make it very convincing and very creative in your ways of dealing with such things. No ovens have started. No one is being gassed. No one is being burned yet. But for now, it starts off as the living conditions will take a lot of them out. The families will be separated. The children will go someplace else. Traditions will be broken. Not the first time you've done this. Let's look at the Native Americans. But again, pretty wrapping paper of intention. There was the intention, you are not my brother and sister. You are not of God. We are not equals. Based on pretty wrapping paper. Not for everyone, just for you. To make it acceptable, to sleep well at night, to make it okay. To make it okay. But then, as the collection continues, as the cost goes up, you have to do something with them. The people who are trained to gather them are not trained to keep them forever. And so the living conditions, not only for those who are within, but those who work within, also degrade. Because they've already trained to treat them not as their brother and sister, but now you have a pile up of collection of people, and that's going to work every day. That's their job. How do you expect them to remain humane in an unhumane system? Why do you hold them accountable when dealing with that every day, that they turn less than human, that their heart grows cold? It's called set to fail. Set to fail. But that's okay. You have a solution. Pretty wrapping paper to cover up the intentions of doing it in the first place. And as long as you can keep the pretty wrapping paper up, you can hide the intentions. You don't have to deal with it. And at what point does that situation boil and escalate? That those, your brothers and sisters, it gets to the point that they're treated so much unlike God, so much unlike, oh wait, you. They get treated so much unlike you. And you have the wrapping paper to justify it, that an oven gets started. Guest chambers get started. You think that what happened previously was so beyond comprehension, who would do that? You would, given the right circumstances. Why would we say this? Your history. You are ever creative, creating a wrapping paper to hide the intention within. Not from us, from you. To make it palatable, to make it acceptable, to justify the fear of them, who is the same as you, who is given birth and life by God. And how did it do this? By giving each of us its essence. And so by doing so, God kills God. God kills God. Or at least the physical form it took. You can't kill its essence, but you can kill its form. Is that wrong? No, because God can never be touched. We exist. We are will in motion. But is there a price to pay? Is there a price to pay? Not from God, from you. You can't even face your intentions. You cannot stop judging others. And why? Because of fear. Because of fear. this would be the opportunity of lifetimes for one who wishes to heal to be here now. Why would we say this? Because there is so much fear present, so much opportunity to be in the moment and expand the fear from a contracted state into its expansive state by healing your own mind. Healing your own mind. You are not here to heal the world. You are here to heal your mind, your part of it, your perceptions. It's the only thing you have free will over. But look at the difference, the way we said Spirit uses intention and using the words, the pretty wrapping paper around those intentions. The words mean nothing. The words mean nothing. It is the energy of intention that is everything. And we come. And how do we see you choosing to use the beautiful paint set that God gave each of us to create existence we live in? You use it to cover your true intentions because you cannot face your fear. And through that fear, you attack each other. And therefore, you attack God and you attack yourselves until the fear is expressed and manifested. And the destruction roils through your land and destroys all that touches. Not the first time you've done this. So why do you keep repeating it? Because you focus on the words. You focus on the words. And then you write history the way you want it written, with the prettiest of wrapping paper, with the prettiest of understanding, to make it all okay, to make it palatable, to make it acceptable, to make you sleep at night, and to not give your future children nightmares over what you've done. Unknowingly leaving the seeds of discontent, the engine of fear, to build again until there is a massive energy and you channel it through. Over and over and over again. So our lesson this time, brothers and sisters, is not one of shame, not one of guilt, not one of condemnation, and certainly not one of judgment. If you're feeling those things, they are within inside you. That's what we're trying to tell you. That's what we're saying. The source is you. You are doing nothing wrong, but choosing how you choose to exist and what you wish to do with the beautiful paint set of creation that God gave us. And you repeat the pattern, and you repeat the pattern, and you repeat the pattern. Over and over and over again, passing it from one generation to another. What is happening now is an opportunity of lifetimes. Of lifetimes. The healing of your mind that can occur now is beyond reproach. if you're willing to take accountability for your intentions and not hide behind the pretty wrapping paper. There is much fear to expand here. How do you start? Where do you focus? What are you responsible for? Just what you perceive. That is your straw in the hay pile. You are not responsible for any other piece of straw, but that alone. What are you currently perceiving? Accept it and expand that fear, and no longer believe in the pretty wrapping paper of words that covers up the intention. And one of the points that we wanted to add is that there are those who will say, I've been against this all along. I've been fighting this all along. So therefore, that intention doesn't apply to me. It applies to a particular group. Oh, really? Your farmers have been suffering for years, working day and night to keep their livelihood alive. We believe back in the 90s, there was something called Farm Aid. But once the music stopped, where was the aid to the farmers? They have been crying out for years that they are at the breaking point, that they can't afford to do their job. The reason why they're using this type of labor, because they don't have the money to pay a regular labor, and no one wants to do the labor because it's too hard. No one wants to work that hard, and they're just too stubborn to give up. And yet, everyone else has ignored them. No one has demanded bills be done to relieve their problems, to redo things, to make their jobs easier. It's only been harder and harder and harder. And now they're at the breaking point, because now they're having their labor taken away. And that's not even to go ahead and say how much of that labor is not actually paying a labor's worth that an American would earn. And all of this, for all of you spiritual people that say that you already knew better, what have you done about that? Those are Americans. Those are your brothers and sisters. Why have you not come into their aid? Why has that not been unacceptable? Why has it been brought to the point that it has? But let's break it down further and go into your society. Let us deal with the understanding of capitalism. So, what has happened to your hospitals, your medical field? Have they gotten better or have they gotten worse? Has it been more of a fight to be seen medically and actually receive medical care? To actually get the medical care you need? Have they been actually trained? Have they been actually listening? Do they care, or do they process you like Swiss cheese? Why are all those people in the medical field? Did they get there because I am a healer and it's my place to serve? Or do they get there because that pays well and I'll make a good retirement? So what are we really talking about? Greed? Oh, we're sorry. We meant to say capitalism. How about the job market? Has the job market gotten better or worse? Have the wages dropped or have the wages gone up? Has the cost of living exceeded way over the point of what the employee's wage is? How about the work environment? Has management treated you as a valuable asset or more like a cog in a machine? Something to be controlled, something to be used. And what happens when it's used up? It gets thrown out. How about the employee's responsibility to the job? Do you walk in seeing yourself retiring there, or do you no longer trust that that's even a possibility? Because in a moment's notice, they're going to close where you're at in order to turn a profit, and you have to work someplace else. Another example of greed. The farmers, again, cheapening the process as much as possible so that they can go ahead and rake the cost of the product in the supermarkets and raise it. And yet everyone in each of these examples is barely making do. Your social structures, even your roads and bridges, how long have they not been repaired? Why? Because it costs too much? Where is all of this money going? Greed. Because of capitalism. Now, is Spirit saying capitalism is the problem? No, we certainly are not. Let us be clear. We certainly are not saying that is the problem. Because there are many that will say the socialist is the way to go. The communist path is the way to go. But yet each of those words have had their time and failed and reached the same point within society that capitalism has gotten to. The housing market. Is it fair and equitable, or is it barely affordable? The food prices. Are they fair and equitable, or barely affordable? Have they been constantly rising, but wages have not? What are we talking about here? Medical costs for insurance that has gone up, but yet care has gone down. Food prices that have gone up, but yet the farmers' wages have not gone up. And your wages have not gone up to be able to afford the food. Housing prices that have gone up, but the quality of the housing that's being built is less than what used to be built, with less care. You have your social situations for the roads falling apart and not being fixed. Although, as of recent, there have been policies put in place to finally address that. But before that, not so much. You had bridges falling over from lack of repairs while you're driving on them, we might add. You have every corner of your society at a breaking point that no matter where you look, prices soaring, everything all at once, care and concern going down, whether it's the product, the house, the healthcare, or the worker, or the work environment. And why? Greed. But again, we state, is it capitalism, socialism? What's the answer? All of those are in pretty wrapping paper of words. It doesn't matter if someone came along and gave you a new idea called the golden box for your economy. You would still corrupt it from greed. No matter what its principles, no matter how it's said, no matter how it's set, no matter what its guarantees, you would still corrupt it. Because the words don't matter. It's the intention that moves through them that's corrupting them. And as a final example, we will say, read your own constitution. Read it. It is available. Each of you, read what it intended. And look at your society and see what the current intentions, dressed in pretty words, has done. And so, we give the example, we give the lesson of intention. It is time to no longer look at the words and look at the intentions, not of others, your own. Become a master of learning your own intention and not the words you use to make it look pretty. Learn to accept that. Learn to change the intention. But before you can change anything, we circle back to the beginning of the lesson with what we said with Mansour. There are words we said to him from the beginning of the lesson. And still we wait. We're not waiting for him to accept our words. We're waiting for him to accept his intention and not the words he uses to dress it up. Because until then, he can't hear ours. And it is time, as individuals and in mass, to address the intention and not the words, and see yourselves truly. And our peace to you.